Welcome to the Firehouse. I'm your host, Captain Kyle Smith. You're responding down the road less traveled en route to financial freedom. If you're a first responder, then planning your future through financial literacy is a minimum requirement. This isn't financial advice, just a conversation to get your wheels turning. Ready? Good, because you're at sea. What's up, everyone? It's Captain Kyle Smith, and this week I sat down for a morning meeting with the host of the house hacking podcast, Andrew Kerr. Andrew's been investing in real estate for 20 years, and he shares his vision for how investors can accelerate their journey in real estate through house hacking. For those interested in ADUs, this episode's for you. Hope you guys enjoy it. All right. Hey, Andrew, welcome to the bullpen. Thanks for meeting me.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to be here. This is fantastic. I mean, once we got in touch, I was like, man, I want to get on and talk with y'all. I love a lot of the nonprofit work I do now is actually supporting service members. So the fact that, come on and talk with folks that sort of are emergency frontline folks, this would be fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. This is going to really just be a perfect marriage of our sort of two worlds here. But before we get into your first alarm, Andrew, how have things, you're out there on the East Coast, out in Louisiana, how have things related to the pandemic started to shift? Have things started opening up out there, or where are things at for you guys?
Yeah, I'm in New Orleans, so the city's been a little more conservative as of the state, but we're back now here at the time of recording this. We're pretty much almost all the way open. They rolled out right at the end of March. Anyone could get vaccines. So, for a while there, Louisiana was leading the country in number of people getting vaccines. And now there's actually sort of I don't want to say a drought in people wanting to work, but a lot of the bars and restaurants are getting so many people coming back to them, they're not able to staff up. There's restaurants and hospitality companies that are offering, line cooks $20 an hour starting. They're offering wait staff, bartenders a minimum $200 per shift guarantee just to get folks to start to come back in. So yeah, it was this huge up and down. The city got hit really hard because we rely so much on tourism, and now it's just, you can tell there's this pent up demand. People want to go out, they want to start to have fun again, and it's just starting to sort of show. So the city needs it definitely. There's a lot of people that got hurt over the past year, but looks like we're getting back on the right track.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And we're experiencing the same thing out here. And we're for it. We want it to open back up. We want it to be, we want the businesses to start opening up again, becoming more prosperous, as long as we can all do that safely and still maintaining the discipline we've all had to share over the last 12 months or so. But we are starting to slowly see that opening up, which is an exciting thing. So I'm happy to hear that that's taking place out there too. Well, cool. You ready to get in your first alarm?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, cool. So a first alarm assignment at the San Diego Fire Department consists of 4 engines and a truck. But here at the Firehouse, Andrew, I'll ask you 4 questions. You give us 1 piece of advice. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay, cool. So when you, in your first alarm, you got to give a size up. And a size up is who you are, where you work, and how long you've been doing it.
Yeah. So my name's Andrew, live in New Orleans. In the past decade, I've actually spent in the nonprofit sector. So right now I'm working with the Coast Guard Foundation. We specifically support the men and women in the Coast Guard.
Awesome. And so explain to our folks that might not be as familiar with what a nonprofit organization actually is, because that, some people aren't that familiar with it.
Yeah. So the basic concept is it's a tax sort of status of an organization. So you could be a for-profit company and you can be a nonprofit company. And the idea behind the nonprofit company is you don't have to pay a lot of sales tax and tax on the business and tax on revenue that's brought into the business. And then if a private individual wants to make a donation to that nonprofit, they then in turn get a tax write-off for that. But with a nonprofit, you actually have to spend essentially all your money. Instead of producing a product that you turn around and sell, you use that for good. So like at the Coast Guard Foundation, we actually do scholarships for spouses of service members to help them further along in their career. We do scholarships for the children of Coast Guard members or retired Coast Guard folks. We do morale and wellness stuff. So, if there's a remote unit way out on a coastline, nowhere nearby, no big military base, and they want some fitness equipment to work out, we'll use donations to help outfit a gym for them, get them a barbecue, cornhole game stuff so they can have sort of just, a fun time with the unit and the family and have that morale event. And then we also have a fallen hero fund. So, God forbid someone does pass away in the line of duty, we come in to fill in the gap that isn't covered by insurance benefits, and then we provide a full ride for any children that are surviving from the service member that passed away. But the basic concept is we go out, fundraise for donations for folks that are proud of what the military does, and we then turn around and support the service members in the Coast Guard.
Oh, that's awesome. That's fantastic. That's similar to what we have here, the San Diego Fire Foundation.
Yeah.
It is people like yourself, Andrew, who are supporting those of us who are out there, supporting the community. And frankly, we couldn't do it without nonprofits like the one you're running, kind of helping us out. And I'm gonna just say thank you on behalf of all of our folks for the work that people like you are doing. Now, so your journey into real estate investing, I want to just pivot a little bit. Your journey into real estate investing, and specifically, I can see the sign behind you saying the House Hacking Podcast. How has that, where did that manifest itself from? What was the genesis behind that? And then also for people that are listening that aren't really familiar with house hacking or just sort of getting started in this arena, can you just describe what that is?
Yeah. So the idea with house hacking is just to make a slightly different choice with your housing. That way, your housing produces income to help offset your cost of living. So that could just be, buying a house with an unfinished basement that's a walkout basement and turning that into an income suite. Or say maybe you got a property that has a detached garage on it and has maybe sort of this extra space. You can convert it into an apartment above the garage, and then you rent out that garage apartment to help cover your mortgage. Or the old concept is you just get a bunch of roommates, but instead of you renting a place and splitting the cost, you buy it. And then you have, if you're young, your friends, buddies, all live there and pay rent, and they essentially cover your costs. So you're living close to, free. And in most cases, a lot of folks can completely wipe out their housing costs and end up living for free. And for a lot of folks, that's their number one biggest expense is their housing expense. So, that's a basic concept behind house hacking. I actually originally started my early career in mortgage banking. I didn't go to college, right out the gate, started working in 18 and 19, stumbled into the mortgage industry, bought my first home by 20. And then, along the way, I had this sort of quarter life crisis, bad business breakup, bad romantic breakup. And I ended up volunteering doing disaster response work. And this 1 week volunteer trip turned into 2 weeks, turned into 4 weeks, turned into 4 months. And I was like, man, I was making great money, but hated life. And now I'm volunteering, not making any money, but I'm loving life. And I ended up getting hired by the nonprofit back then that did disaster response work. And this sort of brought me into this nonprofit world where I'm just like, my life has a purpose. I feel good about what I'm doing. I'm not one of those greedy bankers. Not all bankers are greedy, but you just feel like you're better about your life. That's how I met my now wife. It gave me the opportunity to travel all around the world, and I that's what caused me to go into real estate investing, is to say, I don't want to be some giant real estate investor that owns 50, 100, 1,000 units. I want to have some income, some financial security, so I can do the work that I love, which is the nonprofit work.
Oh, that's awesome. And that's able to support some of that nonprofit work that you're really passionate about. Man, that is so cool to hear. We are fortunate in the fire service, Andrew, that we're drawn to this profession. Many of us feel a calling to be able to serve our communities, and we do get so much in return that just fulfills us in that regard. But we are W-2 employees, and in this part of the world, the cost of living is extremely high. And so a lot of our folks have turned to house hacking, whether it is taking on a couple of roommates, whether it's converting a garage. But what we've seen a lot of recently are these new ADU, accessory dwelling units in our
Yeah.
jurisdiction. The city has really eased up the permitting process so that people can build these additional units on their property. And what that does, not only for the owner, a little bit of added income, but it also provides some more affordable housing in a really difficult place to break in.
Yeah, I mean, the ADU style of house hacking is huge, and a lot of cities are starting to catch on to this where, you're running out of space, so you either expand out or you increase the density. And the easiest way to do that is to let people build an ADU or convert a space into an ADU, and it's phenomenal. I mean, if you're young, buy a property with a ADU, live in the small ADU, rent out the big house, make some money, and then when you get a little further along in life, you switch and go live in the big house and then rent out the
Whoa.
ADU. And then that's what, while I did a house hack at 20, while I was still in banking, the house hacking was really what helped me grow and be able to expand more into real estate investing. Because, when I was in the nonprofit sector, when I very first started, it was as a volunteer. And then my first pay was an $800 a month stipend, and even when you're in your 20s, $800 doesn't stretch very far. So it's a really, really cool way to do a house hack is that ADU style, and use that to help you do the work that you love.
Yeah, that's perfect. I had Eric Falk, San Diego Fire Captain, on the morning meeting recently, and he was saying the exact same thing. He did that exact same thing you just described, Andrew. He bought the house already with the ADU. He lived in the smaller unit and rented out the front until he could build up a little bit of equity, and now he moved his family into that front unit. It's just perfect.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
So that's where things started for you. Now, where are things at these days?
Yeah, my investing career, man, it's gone over from buying my first property at 20, way back in 2002 to now. I mean, it was like 18, almost 19 years. You know, one of the great things I love, not only house hacking, but real estate investing, you don't have to do the same thing forever. And, my investing career has changed over time. So I went really heavy in college housing, in affordable housing, sort of some Section 8, Class C type properties, a little rougher neighborhoods. And then when I was in my late 20s and hustling and had extra time, I could do that, which was more intensive work. And then in 2016, started selling off all the units that I had to reinvest into apartments, not be 100% invested in real estate, and then do some nicer, little higher end places that weren't quite as management intensive and a little less work as I got sort of later in life. And my wife and I got more established, and we didn't want to be working on properties all the time. So it's really sort of transitioned from a lot of different areas of investing over the past decade and a half plus.
Yeah, and that's how this works, right? It's a slow burn over a period of time, and you're allowing the appreciation over time, I'm sure, to help you sort of achieve those goals that you no doubt set out to have. And so, a lot of real estate investors do that exact same thing. They maybe start their first property. Maybe they want to scale up a little bit out of that. They bought a condo or something, and now they kind of outgrew it, but they want to keep it. They move out, buy a little house, and then start renting out that condo, sort of an accidental landlord. And then they continue to scale up just exactly how you've done into apartment buildings. And then, eventually you can sell those off and hopefully one day just retire. And I think a lot of our people would be really interested to hear that. But you mentioned something I want to just circle back to really quickly for people that might not know. You mentioned Section 8 and Class C properties or Class C neighborhoods. Can you just explain to people what that means?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a sort of inside lingo in the real estate world, or jargon is an easy way to classify sort of the condition and quality of an area in a property. So class A, B, C, and some people use D. D is like the war zone, crack dens everywhere. No one wants to live there. Class A is like the brand new neighborhoods. It's got the new mall, or it's been completely redeveloped. There's a Starbucks on every corner. It's the Whole Foods specialty market, the prime location. Class B is generally, properties or neighborhoods that might be 10 plus years old, 15 plus years old. They're great locations. They're not as expensive to live in. They're really great for, rental properties. They're not as expensive as the sort of class A areas. And then class C is sort of properties that are generally in neighborhoods 25, 30 plus years old. A lot of them haven't been renovated. You have great tenants there, but it's a lot of sort of single parent households, folks that might be a waitress at the Waffle House versus the James Beard Award winning restaurant. where the waitress or waiter can make, 60, 70, 80 grand a year. It's, waitress at the Waffle House or working as a janitor, really living paycheck to paycheck. A lot of the Class C properties are folks that it's referred to as affordable housing because it has to be very affordable because folks are living sort of close to the poverty line or well below it.
Yeah, exactly. And then how does Section 8 work into all that?
Yeah, so Section 8 is a housing choice program as part of a federal program. They give out money to states and counties. And the idea is, let's give people a way to get ahead and can we help offset their housing costs? So if they're at that poverty line, they can apply through their local county Section 8 program. And then they get a voucher that says, hey, we as the county will pay a portion of your rent for you every single month, and then the landlord has to get approved. So there's some hurdles you have to jump through as a landlord. You have to show them that you're actually a landlord, you own the building. There's a couple little extra regulations you have to follow. um, they check to make sure you're actually charging a market rent and not overcharging. But the really great thing is when you do it in they have that housing choice voucher, that Section 8 voucher, the rent's guaranteed and they do the direct deposit. The county does the direct deposit of the rent every month on the first of the month for you. So, you might have rent for say $1,000 a month and the tenant only has to pay $50. The other $950 is covered through the program. So it's a pretty phenomenal tool for landlords if you're investing in those sort of C class areas and even sort of B areas.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's great for everybody because it's affordable housing. And as long as you go in there as a landlord and you have to comply with some of the regulations, you have to comply with keeping the property up to a certain standard, which everybody listening to this would recognize and understand is just absolutely necessary. But it is, you get that rent check every single month like clockwork. So it is a really great program. The thing about the classes of neighborhoods and classes of properties, that B class property in a B class neighborhood is really a great place to get started if you are trying to house hack or get involved in real estate in general, because you have pressure on both sides. You have pressure from the class A folks that maybe, getting into that class A neighborhood or that class A property is maybe just a bit out of their reach. And so they're going to be looking to maybe drop down a little bit into a B class area. And you also have the pressure from the C class folks looking to try to get into a little bit of a nicer area. And so that B class is just a perfect like Goldilocks
Yeah.
range where you're getting pressure from above and below. So your vacancy should be pretty manageable if you find the right property. That's cool. Um, Now, so in talking to you, it's obvious you've been involved in this real estate game for a long time. I'm sure it hasn't always been smooth sailing. Can you just share like a favorite mistake you've made over the years that you thought, you know what, I'm glad I made that mistake because I learned from it. I grew from it. I learned to live, fight another day. Is there something that sticks out in your mind?
God, there's so many, over 18 years, there's a lot of things I were little mistakes or, you didn't know, you know what you know and you know what you don't know. And then there's those unknown unknowns. And one of the mistakes I made is I had this college rental and it was in the condo. It was phenomenal. I mean, I bought this building for like 90 grand. It was bringing in $1,700 a month rent. It was just killing it in the cash flow. But there's a couple challenges here. The tenants, when they renewed their lease, they kept up the renter's insurance, but soon as the lease was renewed and we verified it, they canceled it. At the same time, the condo insurance increased their deductible from like 5 grand to 25 grand. And my insurance company at the time, which I won't name, um, decided they didn't want to insure stuff anymore. And what ended up happening was the students were cooking dinner one night, little mini grease fire. And of course, what did they do? They go spray water on it. Poof. And all of a sudden that's, there's probably only going to be maybe $1,000 of fire damage, but because they threw the water on it, that heat, and I mean, y'all firefighters, this, that heat just exploded and that sent off the sprinkler system. All said and done, I think it would ended up being about $40,000 in damage. I couldn't file a claim with the condo association. My insurance denied the claim. And then the tenants obviously let their renter's insurance lapse. So all of a sudden, here I was looking at $35,000, $40,000 in bills to get the place back up and running, and nowhere to go. Luckily, one of my early mentors, and I think this is where the two lessons learned are. One, I should have been checking up with the condo association. So if you buy a property, or even if you're not investing in a property, but you're just living in a home that has a homeowners association or a condo association, you need to be watching that every single update they do. You need to be going to those meetings, because they can make a decision that can affect you as the property owner. So that was one thing I didn't do. I wasn't keeping up with that. And then one of my early mentors, he said, if you ever end up in legal trouble, whether it's your fault or not, think about the most expensive attorney you can hire, and then bump it up and hire someone even better. So I hired one of the best law firms in town. Luckily, I had a friend that worked there who was a managing partner. And he said, look, Andrew, I'll review this stuff, but I'll have one of our junior associates do the work to keep the costs down. And they sent a demand letter to the insurance company. The insurance company didn't pay the whole entire claim, but they, within 3 days, they turned around and cut me a check and said, hey, a check's in the mail. And then they sent a demand letter to the students and said, hey, you violated the clauses in your lease. So we're going to actually come after you. And if you don't pay this, we are going to come after you very, very, very aggressively. Apparently, I guess a couple of the students had some wealthy parents and didn't want their kids to have lawsuits against them. So a couple of days after that, they said, hey, we're showing up with a $21,000 check. We need you to sign something, say you're not going to sue us if we, pay this check. And I ended up coming out ahead. But, the big lessons learned were, stay on top of any homeowners, condo association. If you ever do get into any sort of legal trouble, hire the best. That's not something to skimp out on. And maybe a third one to throw in there is to have really good ironclad leases. Luckily I had the clauses in my leases saying the tenant um, was responsible for the damage and they were required. So they actually violated the lease, which we then were able to use as leverage to get them to pay. So all in all, it worked out pretty well. A lot of restless nights for a while, but luckily I came out pretty unscathed.
Oh my gosh, that is an incredible story. I'm glad things worked out in the end. We can get ourselves in trouble as firefighters and first responders, Andrew, because we are these type A personalities. We think that we have the solution to whatever issue is going on. But when it comes to stuff like this, listen up to what he's saying, guys. Just hire the experts. You would never want a lawyer to come in and put this fire out over here. Just like we are not qualified to deal with something like this. So if you do find yourself in a big mess like Andrew did, hire the best like he's talking about.
Yeah, don't be the student trying to put out the grease fire with water, right? Hire the expert that knows how to do it the right way.
Amen to that. Absolutely. So if hearing that hasn't scared people away from trying to get involved in real estate, Andrew, what would be a way that somebody down here in Southern California could get involved in real estate investing?
Yeah, and don't let these stories scare you away. I mean, I think I've had a little bad luck where I've had 2 property fires and had some couple evictions, but 99.9% of the time, you don't have issues if you just take the right steps. The easiest way for folks to get started with real estate investing is to do a house hack. I know pricing is pretty expensive there in Southern California, but there's a lot of programs that are for veterans. So if there's any firefighters that served in the military and now working as a firefighter emergency response, they can use that VA loan, and you can buy a small multifamily property or a single family with that ADU and have to put 0% down. There's a lot of first responder loan programs where you only have to put 0 to 3.5% down. So, you could go buy a $300,000 property, with 3.5% down. You're looking at, $11,000, $12,000, which seems like a lot, but if you're getting 2, 3, 4 grand back for a refund check, and then do a little bit of part-time work, most folks can come up with that money in a period of a year. If you say, hey, I'm going to save this refund check, I'm going to hustle for the next year, and then save that second refund check. Now you're able to go buy a property and you're able to house hack. Now you have 0 housing costs. And now all of a sudden you're saving what, 1,000, 1,500, $2,000 a month that you can use to pay down debt, which is going to help you get ahead or put towards the next property. And whenever you're done house hacking, move out and turn it into a full rental property. So to me, house hacking is the easiest way to get started in real estate investing.
Yeah, that's perfect. I'm going to piggyback on that. In the preparation to make your first purchase, make sure that you have all the other ducks in a row. Like, make sure your credit score is good. Make sure you don't have any consumer debt, because these are going to be all things that affect your ability to secure a loan, whether it's a VA loan, FHA, or anything else. So, it is a process to get started, but like we're hearing here with Andrew, you can make these things happen as long as you make a plan, commit to it, and then just go step by step over time. So, I just love that. Now, just to wrap up your first alarm here, Andrew, looking back, what would be one piece of advice you would give your own self when you were leaving high school and entering the workforce? What would be one piece of advice you'd give yourself?
Oh man, actually save, save more money. I made the smart decision to buy a home at 20, but man, I mean, just to give a little story for your folks, man, I remember the month I closed on my property, my check after after all the taxes were taken out was $12,000. At the end of the month, I had $0. I blew all of it. I mean, that was more money than I probably should have had at 20, but I bought the new living room set, went out to eat all the time. There was really nothing to show for it. I was a 20-year-old that was making some smart decisions, but the concept, the savings hadn't hit for me yet. And I just knew like, well, hey, I need to spend this because there's another commission check coming, the next month. I really wish I could go back, smack myself around a little bit and say, hey, okay, go blow $2,000, go save and invest the rest of the money. But yeah, that's the one thing I would probably do differently is save more while I was younger.
Yeah, God, we hear that so often. Is I wish I would have saved more. I wish I would have invested more. I wish I would have just gotten started doing something
Yeah.
earlier and let the power of either compound interest or the power of inflation and appreciation in real estate do its thing. And you just ride that wave up, but you do have to get started. And by the way, guys, it's not too late. If you haven't done it yet, start tomorrow. Take one step and start tomorrow, whether it's saving a little bit more, whether it's investing a little bit more. Just listen to what Andrew's saying here and get down that path. So yeah, Andrew, with that, I think you got knocked down on your first alarm. So if people are looking to learn more about you or hear more about house hacking, how could they find you?
Yeah, the website we have is FIBYREA, FIBYREI.com. And then all of our social media handles for the podcast, which is exclusively dedicated to house hacking, is the House Hacking Podcast. It's pretty much everywhere: Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, YouTube. And that's the same for all the social media handles. And, the focus of the show is just interviewing folks that have done a house hack so you can learn from them firsthand.
Awesome. I'll link to all that stuff in the show notes. Andrew, I want to thank you for everything you've offered to us today, all the service that you're providing to the folks in the Coast Guard out in that part of the world. And yeah, your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
My pleasure. All right. Hey, thanks again to Andrew for meeting me here in the bullpen. His idea about house hacking, especially in a high cost of living environment like we do here in Southern California, is just perfect. Take on a roommate or build an accessory dwelling unit. You live in the smaller of the two units, you rent out the front, and they help you pay down your mortgage. It's just a great way to get started in real estate investing. If you'd like to learn more about Andrew, you can find him on his website at FIBYREI.com. That's Financial Independence by Real Estate Investing.com. Or on his podcast, The House Hacking Podcast. If you'd like to learn more about us, we're on Facebook at The FIREhouse. That's F.R.E.house. On Instagram, the _fire_house. On LinkedIn, the FIREhouse Investors, or any place you listen to podcasts. If you learned something today and you'd like to hear more, please like, share, and subscribe. But no matter what you do, take this information, go out there, and get some. Station F.